Hey guys, welcome back. Today's podcast is out of this world. We are all the way in New York City interviewing Sarma from Bad Vegan, Fame, Fraud, and Fugitives. It is insane, this interview, and we touch on everything you guys have been wanting to ask her. And I also ask her about her raw food journey, what got her into this, and so much. And for those of you who didn't see the Netflix documentary, I just want to give you a quick recap so you know what we're talking about in this podcast because we hop right into it. Sarma owned Pure Food and Wine in New York City. It was super popular, packed every night, a celebrity hotspot. And for years and years, it went great. Somebody came along named Anthony. This is just the craziest story, you guys, who slowly started convincing her to lend him money. And it got to a point where she lent a massive amount of money. I think it was about 1.6 million. And it ended up being money she shouldn't have touched because it was investors, but he had promised her he would pay back the money in time. Turns out he didn't. So the investors were upset and staff weren't getting paid at that time. So this turned into a big thing. They were on the run. Sarma says she didn't realize they were on the run, but they were on the run. And I don't want to spoil the Netflix documentary for you, so I won't give you guys too much information, but that's sort of what you guys needed to know to get into this podcast. Be sure to watch it till the end because it's really, really, really good. And she really opened up. So let's just give some love down below. Let's be positive. Let's get into it. And I love you guys. Okay. Beautiful Sarma. You look incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack. So I even popped out the laptop for this one because you have had quite the story, quite the life.
Yeah. A lot has happened.
Yeah. So a top restaurant in New York, that's not easy to do, especially in the vegan world, let alone the raw vegan world. So before we touch on the Netflix doc and all that, I want to ask what got you into raw food? Because it's such a rare, small little niche, right?
It really is. And it was totally unexpected. I mean, my history I outline in my memoir, but I talk about, I went from Wall Street to the restaurant world. And then from there, really, it was like an accidental, and I walked right by the place where it happened. It was an accidental introduction to raw food. A person took me and I was in a relationship at the time, and we were supposed to have dinner with a friend, and he said, can we go to this place instead called Quintessence? Remember on
I heard about it, yeah, but it's closed down now, right?
Yeah, but it's on my way here. I walked right by 10th Street where it was, and at the time, I looked it up, and I was like, what is raw vegan?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, had the lowest of low expectations. Was kind of a little cranky because I'd been really excited to try the trendy, cool Jean-Georges new restaurant in Tribeca we had originally planned to go to. And, years later, the same thing would happen to us where people come in with very low expectations. And as we're sitting there, this friend of ours who brought us there is an older guy, but looked really good for his age, really good shape. And he, really smart guy, and he proceeded to explain the rationale and the philosophy behind raw food, which I don't obviously need to explain to you and probably not even to your viewers.
We know what's up. It's the best.
Right. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. It was really intriguing. And as, he ordered all the food for us and we're eating, and I'm like, this is yummy. This is a lot better than I thought. And it's flavorful. And then what I really noticed was that I noticed how good I felt. I felt really energized. I didn't feel that sort of icky kind of like low-key bad about myself after eating a heavy restaurant meal. And then there was and the whole time I was sort of observing what was going on in this very tiny place, didn't have enough air conditioning, very casual, very tiny place. But meanwhile, I'm seeing like models coming in to get food to go, and all the wheels are turning. And this lovely girl was sitting next to us alone. And we chatted her up about it, and she said, I started eating this way, my whole life changed, the usual story. And she said, but my friends, they wouldn't really come here, they don't really get it. And she said, I wish somebody would open a cool raw food restaurant.
That's the thing. That's what I wish was here now.
Light bulb. Yeah. That was the moment. Like the moment she said that, I even just got chills right now. The moment she said that, I got goosebumps. And I think I realized, like, when you know something without knowing it, I think my body knew, like, that's what's going to happen. Because at the time, the guy that I was with, he and I were working on a restaurant concept. Oddly enough, burger bar. That's what it was gonna be. Yeah, it was going to be like it was going to be like the high-end burger joint using grass-fed meat and fancy cheeses and organic heirloom tomatoes.
Was this Matthew Kenny or
Yes.
no? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and I suppose maybe I write a lot about him in my memoir.
Yeah.
And so if anybody
Get the memoir, guys. I'm putting it down below.
there's a lot of I guess people say tea.
Spilling the tea. We got to spill the tea.
But yeah, so there's a few chapters about my background with him and how we got into raw food and how we ended up opening the restaurant. And then, so I think it was a year after that dinner, because I remember it was the summer, and a year later, the summer of 2004, we opened Pure Food and Wine, which was the first upscale raw food restaurant in the city. And there really wasn't anything like it.
Maybe one of the only ones in the world.
Yeah, I mean, there was one that had come before us called Roxanne's, which had closed down in Northern California.
Yeah.
And that restaurant had closed, but she really is the pioneer, I think, in elevating raw food to like a fine dining type of an atmosphere. And I think what we did that made it so successful over the years was that the food was very high. It was very high end in terms of the food, the ingredients, a really great big wine list, a beautiful kind of sexy atmosphere that did not remotely, people walked in all the time because it was a beautiful restaurant with a big garden and it had this sexy vibe and dark woods and red. People had no idea that it was a plant-based vegan restaurant. There was nothing that sort of advertised that, from the outside or walking in. And we had beautiful wood tabletops and wood floor and red fabric chairs. So we had this very unique vibe that was upscale, but not like fancy, right?
It's perfect.
People came in there dressed up on dates. We would get people getting engaged. And then people would also come in, in their yoga clothes. And so it was like it was very approachable to everybody. And what also was so meaningful to me is that I think on any given night, if you walked around, probably certainly less than half the people in there were people that would call themselves vegan, which meant a lot to me because that was sort of the underlying mission back then, and what I still have, which is appealing to everybody. And
that was your secret sauce.
Welcoming,
yeah,
bringing people in, and that meant so much to me that we got so many people that were hardcore regulars. They would come in a lot, and I think, for some of those people, we made a big difference, and they ate a lot more plants, and they shifted. Some people shifted entire. Who knows what the effect was, but
yeah,
the point was really to make it very mainstream.
And that was brilliant because do you think it would have been different if it was called like Pure Vegan Food and Wine? Like it would have been different, right? Yeah. So you were so smart to do that, and that just doing it like that, just discreetly like that, the name and the way you did it, it actually helps people eat a lot more vegan.
And even putting the name. Putting the word wine in the name, because I remember Matthew, I think, wanted to just name it Pure, and I thought that sounded pretentious. And I didn't really like it, but I argued to at least put in the word wine because it might, I knew it would end up on, if you were looking at like the old Ẓagāt guides or something, it would end up in a category. It would end up in lists of vegan restaurants, and I wanted to make sure that people would be able to see right away that if wine is in the name, there's a wine list. It's a place you could go on a date. It's not just like a crunchy cafe.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of these places, they struggle, right? Well, most of them don't have wine. I'm sure, I know from my mom owning restaurants her whole life, like that's where a lot of the money was in, the alcohol. And so I would think if there was no alcohol, like there might be no restaurant, right? Yeah. But like, was it profitable? Is it a good business in New York? Like owning a restaurant like that, was it worth it? Or was it just more like a love, passion project?
No, the restaurant, that's what kills me is the restaurant was really profitable and it was doing really, really well too. When, the story of how it came undone had absolutely nothing to do with the business.
That's what I thought. That's what
dark person, energy force, a dark person that came in and everything got turned upside down.
Bad apple.
We were actually doing really well. And, and we had we had the One Lucky Duck brand that I'd started, and we had that takeaway around the corner, and that really helped support it a lot too. So we had a very big takeaway business from the same premises. And having the garden really helped too, because the garden itself was so beautiful and so unique in the city that people would come to. That was another thing that drew people to the restaurant where they might otherwise go, raw food, I don't know if I want to try that. So there were a lot of things that drew people into the restaurant, and then once they experienced it,
Yeah.
they were, I was always heartwarmed, and it never got old when, people came in and they would tell me they thought they were going to have to order a pizza afterwards, or like some guy would be like, oh, I'm eating potatoes and I love this, and they get all excited. And so that was endlessly fun and gratifying.
Yeah. What was the top menu item, like the most popular item?
By far the most popular dinner menu item was the lasagna.
Okay, I saw that in a picture. It looks so good.
Yeah, I mean, so the menu, there were certain items on the menu that were always there, and also we had them on the lunch menu and the takeaway menu, and then a lot of the rest of the items on the menu rotated seasonally, not according to any schedule, but we would just constantly be changing the menus. So I have like a stack of menus at home that I recovered. I lost most of my belongings and stuff in life when this whole debacle happened, but I did retain some things, and yeah, I like to look at the old menus and see, we would just change it as ingredients became available, and whatever was seasonal.
Okay, well, I'm going to get into all that. And I want to ask first, though, are you raw? Like, have you ever gone through phases where you're all raw or you're high raw? Like, do you still eat a lot of raw food?
I definitely eat a lot of raw food. I was never really, I mean, there were probably times, especially in the beginning, I mean, in the very beginning, for sure, when what happened was Matthew and I thought we'd try it as an experiment, like, let's go all 100% raw vegan and just see. And that's, of course, when we realized, wow, this, like, I feel like a completely different person. And then, we remained raw vegan throughout most of the beginning of the restaurant, but never really hyper strict, meaning, occasionally there would be some kind of an occasion where we'd be taken to a fancy non-raw restaurant, or I don't know, holidays or somebody's house. Like, I was never so rigid that I wouldn't taste something or be a little bit flexible here or there, because, like, for me, it wasn't so much, I won't ever put this or that in my body. It's more, I didn't want to participate in a system that was supporting factory farming, and I mean, this was what I wanted to eat ideally for my body, but it's not that I would freak out if there was, if some kind old lady offered me a cookie and it had a little butter. You know what I mean? Like, I was never hard. I was never super, super strict.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, I mean, I don't, I'm one of those people where I don't really like rules in general. And so I just, I'm like, I eat mostly plants. I hardly ever eat out. I make all my own food.
And it is a big difference doing that, don't you find? Eating the fresh, real food, eating the raw meals and the real meals versus eating like all the processed stuff. That's why you look glow. You're in your 50s, right? You look amazing. Are you in your 50s?
Next week, I'll be level 53. I started using the word
you
level.
Look great. Wow. Level 53. I love it. Wow. Okay, well, some of the Netflix stuff. So first I want to ask you, do you wish this documentary never happened?
It's a good question, because, I quote the documentary, because I make an argument that it's not a documentary when they change the narrative and change my words around and leave things out. So I argue that there should be a category called docutainment. So even though that show was in itself a massive betrayal, I'm aware that it's, obviously I would have wanted the right docuseries to come out, the right show that really helped people, that really educated people on how, what happened to me, how it happens, and how it could happen to other people, and how it does happen to other people all the time. It didn't do any of that. But at the very least, I mean, I've heard from enough people who have been through similar things, and oddly enough, I don't feel like there's definitely a bit of a correlation between the world of plant-based and vegan and being grotesquely manipulated. I think because in order to have what happened with me happen, I realized that there are certain things about me that made me more susceptible to this. and those things relate to being high on, the sort of empathy scale. And that's also correlated with people who, rescue and adopt, animals and want to make the world a better place, very idealistic, and are plant-based, don't want to harm animals, and so I've met a bunch of people who have been in this space who've also been taken advantage of because, I mean, it's a longer conversation, but I just noticed that there's a correlation between tending to have these types of a worldview and being easily manipulated. So
yeah, you have to almost wonder what would have happened if this guy never came around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, so this guy, for anybody who doesn't know who's watching, so this Anthony guy, you originally met him because you saw Alec Baldwin and him were talking on Twitter, right? And then he started talking to you. So you thought, if they're friends, then this guy must be okay to talk to?
Yeah, Alec and I were friends, and I write about that in my memoir too. And Alec had just joined Twitter, and it was a very different space back then. And he and this guy followed each other, and this other guy was very funny and witty, and I just sort of assumed that it was somebody that he knew, and he would respond back to me, and that's how I was introduced to him. But I did make the assumption, it just added this layer of validation that I thought, oh, well, Alec must know him somehow. So I didn't have my guard up as much as I might have if it was just like a complete stranger.
So looking back, like, what do you wish you'd done differently now that you know now? Like, were there some red flags? You're like, I should have known to like stay away from this guy. Like, what, or for somebody watching, like, what are some warning signs to not get sucked into like a situation like this?
That red flags were like waving everywhere.
You're like, sometimes we don't listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he, from the start, he presented himself with this air of mystery, which red flag number one. Not that there aren't people that lead mysterious lives, but just red flag, major red flag. And I had been a very, very open public person. So I'd written on my website, I had a blog that wasn't so much about, vegan, plant-based recipes and living. I ended up writing very personal stuff about how I was feeling. And so all of that information was out there for him to basically data mine. And what these people do is they learn as much as they can about you, which wasn't hard for him to do because it was all already out there on my website at the time.
So like they all have it planned, right? I think
yeah,
people like us who maybe don't necessarily go through life with like bad motives and planning things can't sometimes understand that or see that, and are just so nice and trusting. And yeah, this is just a bad situation. Like, because who knows where you'd be maybe if this guy didn't come around, right? Like, imagine where do you think your life would be if there was never any Anthony on Twitter? Or maybe it's a sign like Twitter. I don't have Twitter. Maybe that was the problem in the first place. Being on Twitter, we gotta just be careful.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I guess I don't really think about that too often because I mean, I know we were poised to grow, and I was in a situation where a lot of people were coming to me about wanting to expand the One Lucky Duck brand and take it not only national but global. And we had products in 30 Whole Food stores, and it was so popular. And I'd had a couple of near misses where I could have done some big deals, but they would have been with the wrong people. And I was so protective of the brand because I'm sure there's so many stories out there of really great brands and companies and products and concepts that take in, whether it's venture capital money or some type of investor money, and they expand too quickly, and it becomes very corporate, and all of the personality and the original integrity and the spirit of the brand is sort of sucked out of it. And usually will make those people money. They flip it. Their goal is to make the numbers look as good as possible and flip it and make a bunch of money, and then they don't care what happens to it. And I was, having worked in finance and Wall Street before, I was aware of how that works, and I was very wary of the wrong partners. And so I was at this, but in the meantime, I was also very overwhelmed, overworked, exhausted. There were a lot of things I didn't understand about myself. I think I was probably had sort of like a chronic low-grade depression. I got a late in life diagnosis of autism 1 last year.
Oh, wow.
And that just was another layer of helping me understand, how I was overwhelmed and how I wasn't really good at protecting myself either. And also probably even more trusting than your average, like, trusting person. There's a lot of things about being wired in that way that make you more vulnerable. It's like you don't see certain things that other people see. And all of the things that have gone wrong and that I've stepped into that were huge mistakes in my life came from trusting the wrong people. I mean, Matthew too, that's a whole other story.
But never anything probably like this, right?
No, I mean, I at the time I thought that it was crazy what had happened with him and how much he got from me and how much I didn't see and woke up to. And then even after that, I step into something so much worse. So it almost took having everything destroyed for me to step back and really be forced to understand my own personality and doing all of that sort of inner work.
Yeah, because Anthony was doing stuff like, you thought he had money too, right? And he was doing stuff like, from what I remember or think, getting large amounts of money from you, and you were taking it out of the restaurant. He would tell you, don't worry, I'll have it back in time for payroll. I just need it for this. But then time would come around for payroll, and then he wasn't paying you back on time. Yeah, so that's pretty scary. That's pretty crazy. So what do you say to people who are like, well, you shouldn't have taken it out in the first place, though? You should have known not to take it out. What if they're like, you're not a victim, Sarma, like you shouldn't be taking funds out of there? What do you say? Because some people say that, right?
Yeah, people say that to me all the time. It's like, unless you've been through a situation like this, it's really hard to understand. And that's where, the docuseries, the show, Bad Vegan, certainly didn't help at all, because it didn't help people who've never been through it understand. But all the people who have been manipulated completely understood, and it helped them feel at least less alone to see that it happened to me as well. But yeah, I mean, of course, if I could go back, I would have undone it all. But what these people do is it's this very slow creeping process that you don't see it happening. So in the beginning, the first time he asked me for money, like it was this big emergency and it wasn't that much, and so it was like, well, okay, if I can help, sure, and then it just got worse and worse and worse. And then what happens is then it becomes the hook, because I'm so angry that he got all this money from me and I want it back, right? I'm like, I need that money back. That's like an entire person's salary for a year, when it was just a little bit in the beginning, and I want that money back. So he would promise me that he was going to bring me the money back or whatever, and so then I'd let him, because he didn't live in New York City, he used to come into town all the time in the beginning. And so, I sort of, what people don't understand is so many times in the beginning, I was like, all right, I'm done with this guy, but yet I would want that money back. So it's like, well, that money should go into my business. I want that money back. And then I'd let him back in, and then that allowed him to do whatever sorcery people like him do, where, by the end of the conversation or whatever happens, it's like somehow I've loaned him more money, and I'm like, how did that happen? It
just sounds like a big circle of toxicity.
Toxicity and a lot of crazy stuff that people don't, and I mean, it's hard for me to understand too, but it happens all the time. I mean, there's people study neuro-linguistic programming, and there's people who are mentalists, and they know how to manipulate you, and they know how to say certain things, and they understand cognitive dissonance, and that if they confuse you, then they can insert a belief into your mind, and blah, 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 blah. And then they also get to you emotionally. And, what he did was he somehow he had this narrative that somehow he would be able to help me realize my dreams, and so there's that level of it too, where he would weaponize everything he learned about me, and as if he sees me and he sees my hopes and dreams and he really sees my potential. And I remember once he said to me, he's like, I know this brand means everything to you and you think it's going to be big and it's going to help change the world. He said, you have no idea how big it's going to be. You have no idea. You have no idea how important this is to the world. And so, of course, what does that do? That hits that thing in me that wants to believe that, and therefore it creates like an attachment. So it's another thing people didn't understand from the show, or just generally, is because they assume, that I was like in love with this guy, and it
and you're not anymore,
it
right?
was like being in a cult. I never was. It's like it's the situation that happened is precisely that of a cult and a cult leader. It's just that there wasn't a whole group of people. It was just me.
So how do you think you can be prepared now so something like this would never happen again?
It's not easy, because whatever it is that makes me susceptible, it's not like those things are going to change. It's just that I need to have a really, really strong awareness of it and get really good at protecting myself. And it's, it's continued to happen in smaller ways in business. And I even stepped into something afterwards. The consequences weren't as dire because I didn't have anything to take. That's why my guard was down. Also, it's because people think it's all about money. And yeah, I took a massive amount of money and caused all this damage, and it was heartbreaking, and I feel like it's my fault. And, what happened with my employees was absolutely devastating.
But you did pay them back, right? Just because I think a lot of people still think that you did pay the employees back, right? With the Netflix money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't, the docuseries was made and then it was sold to Netflix. And so
I see.
To participate, I just said, look, what weighs on me the heaviest is the money that the employees are owed. And so I was able to get that amount of money for my participation, which I then went immediately to the employees. And it was kind of meaningful because the day that wire came through, went to an attorney, was the day that restaurants were shut down in New York City because of COVID. And so it was meaningful to me that money came through and that they could all know, look, you're getting this money just as your restaurant jobs are now cut off because all restaurants were shut down in New York.
Wow.
During
COVID,
yeah,
remember? Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it was like the same day that at the time Governor Cuomo made that announcement. That's when the wire came through. So the employees were paid, and I was also told that that would be explained in the show, that they had been paid, and that also, importantly, that I didn't profit beyond that. But they didn't put that in the show. There were so many things that were wrong about that show.
Yeah, and I think it was only, you got $75,000, right? Which is crazy. It must make so much more than that, I'm assuming, right?
I know what the director, who not only, he moved my words around in parts of the interview and made it look, he put this twisty ending,
I know, I remember the ending. We were all like, right?
And he did that knowing what really happened. And they sold it to Netflix, and they made a ton of money, like a lot more than all of the outstanding debt that I carried and still carry.
Yeah, because to the investors, it's like over 800,000 or something, right?
Oh yeah, but like way more than that.
Oh, so it is. Yeah.
I mean, I know what they sold it for, and it just
a lot, tons. I know. We can imagine.
It's hard to understand how people do that. And I think what gets a lot of people like me is not understanding that there are people out there who have the capacity to be diabolically cruel and or just having zero empathy. Like they just don't care. Like I'm
because I think a lot of people just think
doesn't care.
With the movie. Yeah.
They don't have a conscience.
How did that feel, having a Netflix documentary on you?
He's not sitting there thinking, oh my God, I feel really bad that we betrayed her and now she's getting all this hate. And, we kicked her, he's not sitting there feeling bad about it.
Do people recognize you on the streets a lot and say stuff? Do they say anything or no?
Right after it came out, people did quite a bit. But now it's been a number of years, and every once in a while somebody says something to me, maybe at the Green Market or depending on where I am.
They say negative things or not, like in person? No.
No.
Okay, good. Yeah.
People don't really do that so much in person.
Yeah.
Mostly what people say nasty things online.
Yeah.
Or in DMs.
Yeah. Well, I feel, okay, so I mean, there's people out there that go to prison, jail, I don't know the proper term, but there's a lot of people that do, a lot of well-known people. And you see a lot of them that come out and they're like, you know what? I'm grateful this happened. I made myself better. I worked out every day. It turned me into a better person. And they appreciate and they're grateful for the situation. And they look back and they realize where they can make changes, what they can do. And they build and create literally a life that's 10 times better. So do you feel like that's been the case and that's what you're in the process of doing? Or do you feel like you still have a hard time with everything that's happened and you're stuck like in the past a little bit with everything?
I guess who knows what's going to happen. I feel like everything could return much bigger than before. And certainly I feel infinitely wiser than before, infinitely wiser in terms of just, being aware of people like that. I mean, even in the last couple of years, I stepped away from some people where I got a bad vibe, and then also paid attention to things that I could see that's a red flag, and I stepped away from certain business partnerships. So I could have had the restaurant reopened by now if I'd gone along with certain partnerships, but I got a really bad feeling, knew it wasn't right, and didn't do it. Now, of course, everything's completely up in the air, and I did make a bit of a misstep in terms of trusting somebody from the past who I thought wouldn't do anything that terrible, and got a bit burned again. Not a bit burned, got very burned again. But I think in our environment, in terms of where people are now with food and ingredients, and even though there's this whole carnivore trend.
Oh yeah, that's a big
right?
trend now.
Which I really, I have my theories about why that's happened, but I think that it's gonna tilt back again the other way.
Me too.
And also, regardless of where people are in terms of what they eat overall, there's been a very big movement towards very clean ingredients, and that's one of the things that we did at Pure Food and Wine and One Lucky Duck is everything. All our ingredients were hyper clean. So there's a lot of, there's a ton of vegan, vegan burger joints and vegan comfort food and a lot of vegan restaurants that I wouldn't really want to go to because I don't really want to eat processed food or junky food or a bunch of empty white flour, carbs, and sugar. So our ingredients were super clean, kind of like keto. You know what I mean? We didn't use bread or flour or pasta or rice even. And you guys have no ovens in your kitchen, right? No ovens. Everything was really nutritionally dense and organic. And so I think, the market for that stuff is even bigger now than it was. And there's no place like that. As somebody, before I went raw 9 years ago, I used to live to go out, get dressed up, go out with my friends and stuff. And then once I went raw, it's just there's not those places around. A lot of them are just, they're different, right? And a lot of them don't survive. So you did really good. And from what I hear, your place was always packed. I had dinner with somebody the other night at Caravan of Dreams, and I was telling her about the interview, and she said she used to walk by and your place was packed all the time. And then somebody else, my friend went to meet somebody in the park last night at Central Park. She had a little meetup with somebody, and the girl was talking about why she went raw, and she said because she went to your restaurant and felt so good after. So then she started eating raw. I love hearing that. So you did change the world. You did. I love hearing that. People sometimes still reach out to me and they say, I came to your restaurant or I got one of your cookbooks, however many, over a decade ago. Even sometimes it's funny. It just, the fact that it happened so long ago. Sometimes people reach out to me and they're like, yeah, I was 16 and my mom took me there and now they're, an adult. And so I love hearing that because it's gut-wrenching, but it's not there. It always felt to me that place would last forever and that it would always be there. And so it just didn't make sense to me what happened. And yeah, I had felt like it would always be there, and I was so you loved it, right? From what I heard, you were there all the time, working really hard. Sometimes you would sleep there. So while it was going good, you put your whole heart into that place, right? I don't know who said that I slept there. I did sleep in the garden twice, but more because it was a fun thing to do. I brought blankets and a pillow, but it wasn't, I always lived within 1 or 3 blocks. I always lived very close, so it's not like I would need to sleep there, but I branded myself with the brand and got the tattoo because I felt like this is meaningful, this is big, and everything was going in that direction. I just was really overwhelmed and hadn't found the right business partner, the right situation to really help me take it forward. And I was just overwhelmed and overworked. And as anybody will say who's stepped into a really bad situation like I did, or fallen into a cult, these people find you at a time usually when you're very vulnerable. So either, I was on the other side of a breakup I had a really nice, normal, after Matthew, I was with somebody for 4 years, who was much younger and a very old soul and no drama, lovely, beautiful relationship that I knew was going to end eventually. So I was just in a heartbroken state, really overwhelmed and tired, and and that's so my defenses were down, and that's when he came.
And then that's when he came along. Yeah, I really feel like we attract the right partner when we're at our best. That's what I think. When we're at our best, we feel like we don't need anybody. We're living our best life in like every area of life, health, fitness, like passion, purpose. That's when I feel like the right alignment match comes around, not when we're at that low. I think a lot of times that can be an improper fit. I would say that's what happened here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think now, after everything that I've been through, I think I'm deliberately very sensitive to people's energy. And you might feel like somebody has good energy, but it might not be. It might be kind of overwhelming in like an intoxicating sort of way when somebody's really charismatic.
Yeah.
And almost mesmerizing.
Yeah.
That's a little bit,
yeah.
That's red flaggy.
Yeah. No.
Because these people you hear this a lot about people who've been through stuff like this, or about other people in their orbit. So, you hear it about Elizabeth Holmes or Jeffrey Epstein, or, but you'll hear people say, yeah, I didn't, these people who gave them all their money or did all, they'll say, it's like they were under a spell. You just hear that all the time, and that's what it's like. And how do you describe what that feels like to somebody? You're not aware it's happening, but these people have an almost magnetic, like a really intense sort of a charisma that does, in a way, put people under a spell.
So what did you see in him?
People ask me that all the time because, of course, he was not as large, not even close, when I first met him. But again, that's the part that's probably hard to explain because I don't really understand it myself. It's like somebody, it is like a spell. It's like somebody comes in and gets their hooks on you. And what creates the attachment, in this case too, is that he understood my deep down hopes and dreams and where I didn't feel seen by other people and what I felt alone with, and made it seem as if, he was the way that I could get there.
Okay, and that must have felt pretty crazy you have like a very successful restaurant in New York. I'm sure a huge social circle with that, like, and a lot of fulfillment in that regard. So you go from that to then, like, you guys are on the run. I know you say like you didn't realize that that's what was happening, but then you're just alone with him in these hotels, like in the middle of nowhere, from a life that you love so much here. So that must have been a lot of change and a lot to deal with, I'm guessing. And I know I heard you say at one point you realized if you couldn't get your restaurant back, you didn't want to be here anymore. So I know a lot's happened. Like, what would you say has kept you going through all this? Because I'm sure it's been a lot of heaviness and bad feelings and a lot of bad, right? So what has kept you going through this? Like, whether you had involvement in this or not, like, it's really difficult to deal with, right? So what's kept you going? Because it's been crazy, right? A lot of people would have just given up. So
I think knowing that, a couple of things. I mean, I feel like what drives me now is, it used to be just wanting to have a positive impact and helping to shift the way people eat, and shift towards eating more plants and less animals. And that was my driving mission, and I still have that and feel that. And now there's like another one has been brought in, which is helping people understand what happened. Because I mean, at this point, it's been thousands probably over the years people that I've heard from. And it's not just women, it's men too. But what happened with me and this guy is something that happens a lot more than people realize. And it might just be being in a relationship with a toxic, malignant narcissist who's very manipulative and controlling, and you get confused. And my case was just incredibly extreme. But there are a lot of other situations like that, but mine happened to be in the tabloids and more high profile. And then, and then they made a show about it. And so for better or worse, I have a platform where I can speak out about it and help people understand how this happens. And when people ask about my memoir, it would be impossible for me to say, sitting here, tell you what happened with this guy and kind of explain, all right, here's what happened. And for anybody to really understand it, there was no way to really convey what happened other than in the length of a full book. And my book's not short either. It's a long book. And so I really take the reader through what that was like. And I think it feels important because I know how painful it is to be on the other side of something like this. And on top of all the devastation personally, on top of all that, you're completely misunderstood. So your friends and family don't understand, because this tends to happen to people who are very bright. So again, that worked against me in my situation, where people think, well, she went to an Ivy League school and she worked on Wall Street and she ran her own business. She's clearly no dummy. So I don't understand how she could have been conned. Therefore, the only thing that makes sense is she must have been somehow in on it, which to me logically doesn't make sense, because what was I getting out of it at any point in time? My whole business was destroyed. Everything I cared about, people I really cared about, were hurt. All of that shame is mine to carry, where, and that guy's just off doing the same thing now to somebody else.
And how do you deal with that shame?
It's very difficult, because I know, it's very difficult when you know inside what your intentions were. So I feel very sensitive when people say to me, like, well, you paid your debt to society, because I was sentenced to jail. And as if that is a definitive statement about my guilt or complicity in what happened. And everybody deserves a second chance. But these things that people say that implies that somewhere along the way I had a bad intention. And that's really painful to hear, because no matter what people say, no matter what crappy comments people write on YouTube and nasty things people say, I know what my intentions were. I know why at every step of the way, what I thought was happening and what my intentions were. And so personally, I feel like I'm okay with who I am. I don't feel guilt or shame, because I know what really happened, but it's projected onto me in such a big way. And of course, I feel horrendous about what happened with my employees and just the place not being there, even the extent to which the landlord or vendors or investors, all of that feels like it's my responsibility, like it's my fault. But almost like if it's like if you were driving and you caused an accident by accident and all these bad things happened, you would feel really terrible about it. But, would people be shouting at you that you should be ashamed of yourself? If it was just an accident? They wouldn't, but they do in my case, because people don't really understand what happened. And so, and I can understand how people don't understand what happened. So it's even hard to push back on it. And so I just sort of have to, I just have to try to be as solid with myself as I can and not.
Yeah. And you have to move forward, focus on the positive. And I feel like you have to realize if you created that major successful restaurant before, you can do that or something super successful or even better again. And you can get these investors paid back, and maybe you can create an even better life from it. And you can learn not to just be careful who you're around, because, the right people can elevate our life, or the wrong people can really just help take our lives down, right?
Yeah. I hear from
we got to live our best lives
all the time. Really good people are completely destroyed and taken down by the wrong person.
Yeah. So we got to move forward. And okay, I heard you say once, I'm not a criminal. I'm afraid to even get into trouble. Yeah. So it just reminds me of it's just so it must have just felt crazy to go to jail. And I just want to ask, the food, I just always thought, oh my God, imagine I ended up in jail. I'm a raw foodie. I eat so clean. I picture no raw food. I don't know what it's like, but I just picture these crappy mashed potatoes, this shitty meat, and everything just disgusting. Did you have any good quality food in there?
Yeah, no, I wrote about that in my memoir too. I think I even kind of make a joke about it because I can't help have a bit of like a dark sense of humor, but I'm like, you can't lose that stubborn last 10 pounds. Just get yourself arrested in Tennessee jail. Because I was arrested in Tennessee and in the jail there for 10 days. Or 2 weeks. I can't remember now how long I was there, but I probably came out of there like 5 or 10 pounds lighter. I was already very thin because I was in that very strange dissociated state. But yeah, I didn't eat a whole lot when I was in the Tennessee jail. Probably the best thing there was like those syrupy canned peaches.
Oh, wow. Oh. And I wouldn't even eat those now, but if you're in there, what do you do, right?
There's
What's even in that syrup?
Yeah, and so that by the time I was extradited to Rikers. When I got to Rikers, it was like, it felt like the Four Seasons in comparison to the place I was in,
really?
Tennessee. Yeah, which is crazy to say because it's not like it,
What type? Okay, so I don't know. What type of, because I'm originally from Toronto, I've heard about Rikers, but what type of prison is that?
So Rikers is where people go if you're arrested and you're awaiting a trial, you're waiting to get pulled out on bail, or if you're sentenced to less than a year. And then, if you're sentenced to more than a year, then you go away to prison. But jail is sort of like the in-between place where you're held. And then ultimately, I got out on bail, and then I ended up pleading guilty, which again, people just assume if you plead guilty, you must be guilty, because if you weren't, why would you plead guilty? My situation was so messed up. It happened like before the Me Too stuff. It happened, there have been cases since then, like the leader of the 𝒔𝒂𝒗𝒆 cult who was prosecuted and sentenced to 135 years in jail. Like if my situation had happened after that, there's at least a framework for somebody to see this type of a manipulation and what can happen. But when my situation happened, it was before all of that. Nobody in the prosecutor had it out for me. Like nobody understood what really happened. The whole thing was, it was like at no point was there any other option other than pleading guilty.
Yeah.
Which sucked because I didn't, I just feel like, it's all about your intentions, right?
I feel like with God, it's all about our intentions, but sometimes here with us humans, people just see what happens and they're, that's what I think.
Yeah. I mean, but you could be guilty of crimes, even not knowing you were committing crimes at the time, or even if somebody else influenced you to do it and you didn't really know what was happening, you can still be prosecuted and guilty for those crimes. So, and I just, early on, I thought, well, why would they put me in jail once they see what really happened? And the more evidence that came out, the more stuff that was uncovered, I was like, oh, yes, surely now they'll see. No, the prosecutor just wanted to see me punished, that's a whole other story.
So the sentence was basically for taking, like dipping into funds that were that were investor funds and for not paying the employees? Is that what it was made, like the sentence was for that?
Yeah. Well, whenever somebody asks me about the charges specifically, I'm like, I've dissociated of it. But what made a huge difference is the judge, at least. The prosecutor, another story. The judge seemed to understand that something really messed up had happened. Similarly, the detective who arrested me knew that I was not a criminal and that this was a really messed up situation. And he could tell. Like, some people just have enough experience where they're like, all right, I see what's going on here. In the same way where, like, if I was a family court judge and some couple came in, I would pretty quickly be able to tell, okay, that person's manipulative, that, I would be able to figure it out, I think. But, so the judge, at least when he sentenced me, he said that it seemed clear that I'd tried to run my business in good faith, but that because of the amount of money that was involved, blah, blah, blah. It was like, I think he just felt like he had to sentence me. What was more disappointing was that at no point in time did anybody, that guy was never charged for what he did to me, what he did to my mother, all of the grotesque manipulation and what he did and the way that he preyed on not just me, but my mother and a bunch of other people. He was never charged for that at all. And that's one of the really tragic things about this, is that these people tend to get away with a lot of what they do. But there are more and more laws being passed state by state, criminalizing what's called coercive control, which is basically a type of psychological influence. And so that at least people are starting to recognize that this is a thing that happens.
And how did it feel? So you got your sentence, and thanks for talking about all this, because I'm sure it's not easy. Like, it's negative, and it's not easy to get on here and talk about this.
And that's why what the judge said really meant a lot to me, because I felt like he was acknowledging that I'm not a horrible human being.
Yeah.
That I just got into a bad situation and, you know, shit happened and he had to sentence me. And, you know, I'm well aware, and I got to know some people that have been through much worse sentences, much worse situations. You know, people do time all the time for stuff they didn't do, or they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And 4 months is not a lot of time compared to people that are sent away for years and years for stuff that they didn't do or didn't intend to do. And there's so many tragic situations where, you know, I'm not saying like, poor me, I had to go to jail. And there's certainly a lot about that experience that was valuable during that time. So I don't really regret the time in jail that much, although of course, you know, 4 months in jail really sucked. And of course this was the thing that I was fantasizing about.
No green juice in jail. What was the first thing you ate when you got out?
My father and my mother, who, you know, divorced a long time ago, but my mother had my dog and my father came and picked me up. And so they brought me back so I was living in Harlem at the time, and I'd given them a list of what I wanted. I was like, coconut. I basically wanted to make a big cilantro green shake. And so, you know, I was like cilantro, coconut water, you know, cucumber, mangoes, limes. Like
most people are like, get me a Big Mac, you know, when they get out.
I just wanted like watermelon, like fresh produce. So at Rikers, at least, usually in the mornings, we would sometimes get an orange or like a small apple or sometimes a plum, and I would kind of hoard that stuff. People would give it to me. And,
they're like, take it. We just want the biscuits. Take it.
Yeah, and very often, like, there would be some, you know, some overcooked green beans, or I did, so I was able to, I don't know, tell the medical department or somewhere, I did check a box somewhere to say that I was vegan. What that meant was that occasionally, you know, they would sometimes send up these little pint containers of beans, but it was like, and I was grateful for that, but they basically, it's like they open a can of kidney beans and just dump it in. You know, it's not like it's prepared in any way. It's just like plain beans. So sometimes I got that. Sometimes they would send up soy milk in the morning, but everybody always really wanted it, so people would take it first, and then I wouldn't get it. And not that I was thrilled about. Who knows what was in that soy milk anyway. So basically, eating was a bit challenging. But you'd think I would lose weight. No, everybody gains weight there because there's no. Rikers isn't a prison, so there's no exercise facility.
Really? There's no gym?
There's no gym. There's no exercise facility. There's nothing, and you're supposed to be able to go outside for an hour every day. Didn't happen nearly every day, and even so, just getting outside was a huge pain in the butt. And then it was the middle of the summer in this concrete yard in the hot sun. And like, what, are you just going to walk around and do laps? Like, it just,
I guess,
it was really hard to get. If you wanted to exercise at all, you had to basically like stand in place or do push-ups in front of everybody. And so, yeah, a lot of, I mean, even the time that I was there, I watched people put on a lot of weight.
Wow, interesting. And did you meet any connections at least? Because I feel like we're tribal creatures. If we have at least like a connection with somebody around us and we're laughing or feel connected, like that can just help tremendously in life, whether we're in prison or in the real world. Did you have like anybody in there that you felt like connected to?
Yeah, so I was in a dorm of 50, up to 50 women. So it's like a room with 50 beds.
Wow, that's crazy, really?
Yeah, I know. And for me, so another thing that I think is correlated with like the sort of a person that I am is that, you know, I tend to be kind of introverted by nature, even if I could sometimes, you know, present as being social, or I could do the thing at the restaurant and talk to guests and be very friendly and outgoing. But by nature, I keep to myself. I'm very introverted. I need a lot of alone time, and definitely check all the boxes of the category known as being a highly sensitive person. So being in a room with 50 women where, you know, somebody's like making an annoying, like the snoring, That was if I could have had a couple of wishes of things, like the snoring was brutal because I hear
all the
those
different
things,
snoring.
and yeah, that part of it was challenging, but I did.
And it was like that for your whole sentence in there, like sleeping in a room with all the people like that?
Yeah, I was always in the room with 50 people, and the beds aren't very far apart.
Oh, so you get like no time to yourself in there.
There was never any
Oh, I'd
place
go
to
crazy. I'm
be
like that too. I need some time alone.
ever. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There was
So you must have
never-
felt happy to get out of there when the time was come to get out of there. And then you're starting over, right? Because you went from the top, having this restaurant, and then like to lose everything like that. And then, but at least you got out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, getting out was challenging because there was something as difficult as it was being in there. I was very lucky. People sent me a ton of letters. I think one of the things about, having had the business for so long is that a lot of people who were regular customers who regularly ordered our stuff online they felt like they knew me because I was always very open. I wrote a very personal blog. So people seemed like they really knew me. And I think for that reason, no matter what the tabloids said, even just our customers, even people who'd never met me, they knew that something really terrible had happened because they knew that place meant so much to me, and that I never would have done something to destroy it. Why would I do that? And also for what? Like, it didn't make any sense. So I felt really heartwarmed that I had a lot of support from people, and people mailed me a ton of books. So I basically had tons of books, and I spent a lot of time reading. And there's something about, I mean, there's fights going on, and it's kind of scary, and there's a lot of nonsense. But also there's something a bit, it's very rare that you're somewhere where you have no responsibilities.
True.
There's no emails to get back to, no texts to reply to, no appointments, no expectations, you don't have to perform, you don't have to go to a job, like you're just there. So, but then when you get out, all of a sudden now you have to deal with your real life and how you're going to pay, how am I going to pay my rent and what's going to happen and what am I going to do? And then how am I going to explain what happened and all the stuff. So there was something kind of simultaneously, it was a relief to get out, but also it was just scary to get out in a way that was different from being locked up.
I saw, do you know Todd and Julie Chrisley? Because they were in prison. They're reality stars. They used to have a show I used to watch all the time, and then they got pardoned, so they got out recently, and they were in there for years, and they said the same thing. Like the hardest thing was adjusting to getting back out, because when you're in there, it's a lot different, right?
Yeah, it's a strange existence. I mean, people think human beings are very adaptable, but yeah, it's like you just learn to exist in this new environment.
Yeah, and I heard when you went in there, like I don't know if it was the first place in Tennessee or whatever, like you had to detox off coffee. Because there was no coffee, right? And I think people really underestimate what that can do to us. It's a big...
That's where I really learned that I'm one of those people that maybe shouldn't be drinking coffee at all because I'm very sensitive to it. And my memoir opens with a scene where I'm throwing up in this Tennessee holding cell, and all the other women in there are coming off of hard drugs, and they're all miserable too, but for other reasons. And they kept asking me, oh, honey, what is it? What are you coming down from? And I'm like,
little Colombian coffee.
And it's like not even good coffee because I'd been living in this random hotel, So, that part was brutal. I just had the migraine of all migraines.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
From drinking a couple of cups of coffee and then going from that to nothing at all.
Yeah. Okay. So what would you say is like your dream path forward? What if you could carve like your best next chapter? What's the best your dream life if you could create and know it's all going to happen? What would you want to do from here?
I'd rebuild the whole restaurant and the whole business in the right way with the right people in the same space with a lot of the same people. I'm in touch with a lot of my former people and the ones who are available and around. It's been so long that people have gone and married and they have kids. And what's so sweet is that so many people, a lot of people that work there who married each other.
No way.
Which is, a ton, a lot.
And even Alec Baldwin, he used to go there and he met his wife there, I heard, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
But my point is there are some really key people who are around and would be ready to jump back in and reopen it all. And it's not, I don't want to do that for me. I want to do that because it feels like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, it feels like that's what I'm here for. I never had the desire to have kids. I never wanted, like, getting married, and I never wanted to, like, getting married. I don't know, who cares if I'm married or not. I don't really think about that, but I never wanted to have kids or that kind of a family in a life. And I felt like this is why I'm here.
Your purpose.
And I think that's why I said what I said somewhere else, where when it closed that first time, I just felt like either I get this reopen or, you know, that's it.
Well, it's good you pulled through. And
so,
what if an investor was like, oh, Sarma, like, it'd be great to reopen it, but what if they're like, how do we know we can trust you that this isn't going to happen again? Like with the funds and stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's where, if I'm even asked that question, the person doesn't understand what happened. And that's kind of concerning. And that's part of why I wrote my book. I mean, I would want anybody who wanted to participate going forward to read my book and understand what happened. And then I, likewise, you know, I would want there to be systems in place so that I'm not even vulnerable to somebody coming around and being able to, you know, I wouldn't even want there to be a vulnerability of it. You know what I'm saying? So I would want there to be enough checks and balances in place. And even there's somebody I write about in the book who was early on he had been a bookkeeper, and then he was kind of a controller and general manager, and he's one of the people that would come back, which would be so great because he was so reliable. And one of the things that was so great about working with him there was that, like, nothing fell through the cracks and very, like, on top of stuff. And when he left, it was actually because he realized, like, something's not right here, and like, I'm uncomfortable with this, to his credit. So he left. So having a lot of people like that in place and making sure that, I mean, you can easily set a business up where there's checks and balances, and it wouldn't even be physically possible for anybody to, like, start moving funds and doing stuff, especially now when so much is digital. When so much is digital and everybody can have access to the bank accounts and you know, and I've always, you know, now more than ever, I would err on the side of kind of full disclosure about everything. Yeah. And then, you know, likewise, I am involved in another docuseries that I hope will really be helpful in terms of educating people about what happened. And so again, I feel like I have these two tracks.
That's good.
You know, rebuilding business is what I feel like I was kind of my reason for being here. But I also have, you know, the story of what happened to me, and all of this information that I know is really valuable for people. And so being able to speak out for all of the people like me who don't have a voice and don't have a platform and are rooting for me to succeed just because they want to see that, you know, these people, sure, they can come in and completely obliterate your life, but it is possible to rebuild and, you know, become healthy again and rebuild and come back stronger than ever. So I feel like it's really meaningful from that perspective too, just to show people that.
And do you ever think, oh, how did I fall for this? Like with the stuff with him, like how, looking back, like, do you ever think?
Yeah. And that's well,
that's good. You know,
my book is really kind of taking people through that journey so they can understand how it happened. Yeah.
And okay, so your restaurant, like, on a positive note, because I know a lot of it's like dark and negative, but sorry. And on a positive note, like the restaurant, it was such a success, like I said. So, like, what are your keys? What do you think were your keys to success? Like, say somebody's watching and they're like, they want to get into business, they want to open a restaurant or something. Like, because you were very successful. To be very successful with a restaurant in New York City, like I said earlier, it's not easy, especially in such a healthy niche. So what were your top keys to success with that, would you say?
I think it was the people, you know, being able to cultivate an atmosphere where people felt valued and able to contribute. I mean, that was one of the most tragic parts about it. What happened is that place really was, as cliche as it sounds, it really was like a family. And, you know, I rarely hired somebody from the outside to come in a higher level position. Everybody was always promoted from within. So, you know, there's like photos of people in this first cookbook that came out in 2005 that were there the entire 11 years.
Wow.
And that's very rare in the restaurant business. And it's one of those things that's, you know, you'd never be able to quantify it on a spreadsheet, but having such low turnover and having people who are really committed to the restaurant's success is everything. And people feel that energy when they come in. I used to hear from people all the time that said they just loved coming in because it had such a good energy in there. And that's all because of the people and the type of energy all the people had and their relationships with one another. And then, you know, of course, we had really good ingredients and we had a good vibe and good music and good lighting and, you know, and beautiful food and all of that. But I think, I'm sure, you know, the number one thing is probably the people.
Yeah, I love that. In New York, it's easy to find good people. And what would you say was the best part about owning the restaurant? And what do you think is the best part about eating raw food?
I think the best part about eating raw food is just how it makes you feel. I mean, you know, everybody, probably most of the people,
if you know, you know.
Yeah, they know. It's just how it makes you feel, and allowing you to feel clear. You know what I mean? Like eyes wide open and clear. Sort of like, you know, the way not drinking a bunch of alcohol, you get drunk, you get fuzzy, or, you know, you just feel very clear and like eyes wide open. And so one of the bonuses of having the restaurant was certainly being able to eat all that food all the time and not have to prepare it myself. That was a huge bonus.
Yeah, that's a great plus.
But I mean, by far the most gratifying thing about having that restaurant was just the impact that it had on everybody, on the people that worked there, on the people who came in, and on sort of, you know, helping to nudge this movement forward and expose people to this type of food. And that was really gratifying because we had people coming in from all over the world, and it really was a destination type place. And the fact that the space is still there, I don't know, it feels meaningful.
Was it a success right off the bat, or did it take a while to build it up?
It took a little while. I think it did get a bunch of press initially. We always got a lot of press without any outside PR because it was very different. In the beginning, I think people were a lot more skeptical. We opened in the summer, so we had the garden. So the first summer was really busy, and then the first winter was a bit challenging. But then over time, it just got better and better and better, to the point that, you know, winter, summer. And, you know, 2008, there was a big economic downturn. A lot of restaurants in the city closed. A lot of like institutions, a lot of fancy restaurants that had been around for years closed during that time. And we made it through that time because, again, we were very different. We weren't pretentious. We weren't fancy. The food was expensive, unfortunately, because it had to be with the ingredients and what we paid in rent and all of that.
Yeah, and you're in New York.
But, you know, we got through that because, you know, people were extra supportive during that time. And I think no matter what, I mean, I think even like through COVID, we probably would have done all right because, you know, as anybody knows, eating this way is incredibly helpful in terms of keeping your immune system strong and staying healthy.
Huge. It's huge. It connects you with your higher self, I feel like. Just puts you into alignment, makes you feel your best and live your best life. And I feel like, so I was talking to my friend in LA last night, and she was saying, your raw food book, she's been raw for a long time. She's so inspiring. And she was saying this book, Your Raw Food Book, is her favorite raw food book of all time.
Oh.
Yeah, so this looks amazing.
You.
So this is 100 recipes to get the glow. So I'll put the link for this down below. It looks
yeah,
so
I mean,
great.
that came out in 2005. This one came out this one came out in 2009. And they're still on Amazon.
Yeah, okay.
And then and then there's my memoir, which doesn't have any recipes.
No, it's totally different. So this is the new book, The Girl with the Duck Tattoo. Okay, so take us through this.
Yeah, I mean, it's the story of what happened, and it includes the backstory of, you know, how the restaurant came about, my story with Matthew, what happened there, and then of course, you know, the more painful parts about how it came apart, but you know, it really takes the reader on a bit of a ride with me. And I include as much analysis as I can about what happened and, you know, sort of the psychological processes that happen along the way. And, you know, and there's some funny parts and a bit of comic relief throughout a dark, harrowing story.
That's what we need. We need to laugh.
But yeah, I mean, I love hearing from people who are reading it, which I love that. I get DMs all the time from people who are reading it and telling me that the number one comment I get is that it's really hard to put down.
That's what I heard too.
Which means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like that. And even people who don't read a lot, because nowadays people have issues with like attention span and whatnot, or there's just a lot of people who don't read
Tell
books
me about
anymore.
it.
And I've heard from so many people who say, like, I haven't read it. This is the first book I've read in years.
It is so much healthier. It's so nice to just sit and read a good book than just scroll. Your mind's just going crazy.
And the chapters are long. I mean, the book itself is long, but the chapters are short. So it's kind of easy to get through it. Like, it's easy to read, you know, a couple of chapters at a time. And it's very conversational. You know, it's not hard to follow. It's kind of like me talking to you about what happened in my story. So,
and through everything, like the good, the bad, the last number of years, what would you say comes to mind is what you're most grateful for? Because I know even in the dark times, like there's still always things to be grateful for through all this experience. What do you feel grateful about?
Well, you know, as you said, it's hard to feel grateful about bad things that happened, but I think that not just for me, but what I've noticed other people talk about too, who've been through something really dark, I mean, really, really, really dark like this, is that it really ripped me apart and ripped me open in certain ways that led to a sort of, you know, a sort of like awakening, for lack of a better term, in terms of how I relate to the world and myself, and being forced to do a lot of that self-reflective inner work, so that now I feel much more, I'm much more solid about who I am and my place in the world, as opposed to just sort of barreling forward in an overwhelmed state. Now I'm much more like awake and aware. And I've heard from a lot of other people who've been through something like this that it has that effect. It's sort of like it rips you open and breaks you open so that you can then be rebuilt much stronger.
I love that. And with how hard this has been and how many bouts of depression, I'm sure, have you turned to things to numb yourself, like phases of like drinking a lot? And what's been your experience with that? Or have you been able to keep, because I know it can be hard and during hard times, it's easier to like turn to the dark side of things when it comes to what we consume. So have you done that, or have you stayed like, oh, I'm going to work on my fitness, I'm going to eat healthy still no matter what?
Yeah, no, I've continued eating healthy. It's funny because my version of, I remember once a few years ago, I went to a functional medicine doctor because I was having issues with my gut. And, you know, he asked me about like if I eat sweets, or like if I binge or indulge or whatever. And I think I said to him once that like sometimes I would eat like way too many, you know, like dried currants or dates or something. And he looked at me like I was completely nuts, because that was my version of like falling off the wagon. It's like, oh my God, I ate way too many dates, or like I ate like 5 mangoes. Oh my God. So I've never, and you know, I guess, yeah, I've been pretty impressed with myself that I never, I used to joke around that like my biggest vice was playing this Churchill solitaire on my iPad. Like that's how I would numb myself. Or, you know, for a while I watched a bit too much news, and I weaned myself off all of that, because more and more I realized I just really do want to be awake and present for anything. So, and oddly enough, over time, I just, like a lot of people nowadays, I just stopped drinking. I mean, I never drank a lot, but certainly, you know, I drank wine and around my family and out to dinner or whatever early on. But maybe it's also just a thing that happens as you level up, as I like to say, in your number. But not only did I feel
that's good. So you don't drink at all, really?
I basically don't drink at all.
Wow,
like,
that's
it's like
great.
Once in a blue moon, I'll have a little bit of something, or
that's
it's like
good,
if I went to a
Sarma.
wedding, I would have a little bit of. I don't know, but I basically don't drink because it just doesn't. It's like it doesn't feel good, and I don't really want to be numbed that way. And I've never
That's good.
I've always hated.
Better.
Getting
It just
high.
makes things
I don't
worse.
Like drugs.
Yeah.
I never liked getting high. That was never my thing. So yeah, I've continued to eat really well and eat really clean, and it's an odd way, and you probably can relate to this. Is like this becomes comfort food. Because what is comfort? It's, you know, eating a big bunch of cookies or don't like, that's not comfort food. That's self-sabotaging, you know.
Yeah.
This is comfort food. Really, really healthy food is comfort food. So, you know, if anything, like numbing myself is like getting immersed in a jigsaw puzzle, or like playing Sudoku or something with my brain. But no, I mean, I think, yeah, I've just wanted to face it all and process all of what's happened. And actually, oddly enough, I said this recently on another podcast. I said I cry now more than ever, like every day. Like I cried this morning. I cry a lot. And I think in part is because I spent so much time frozen, like in a completely frozen, dissociated state when all of this stuff was happening, that it takes a really long time to thaw out and then to let all the emotions and stuff come out. So
Good
usually
to cry.
people think like, oh, you know, or you're crying, you want to take meds. Like, no.
Oh, I know. It's
Just the
ridiculous
other
these
day.
days.
Yeah,
Are you bipolar? You were happy then, now you're crying?
I told
No, know.
somebody that I cry all the time, and he was like, "Oh my God, that's great." And I was like, "Right? I know. I'm you know, it's just getting it all out, and I feel like it's super healthy to do that."
I agree. And it's a way to soothe ourselves. They say when we cry, like it increases some hormones. It's almost like a therapy session for yourself. You know, I think it's healthy and it's really good.
It's incredibly healthy. It's
Yeah.
cleansing. It's getting it all out. And nowadays, it's like I'm so aware of everything. So like if something irks me or something upsets me or something somebody says, or like immediately I stop and go, okay, like why is that upsetting me? And then I'll be able to sort of figure out, well, maybe it's because of this when I was younger or whatever. But I'm so aware of everything now that I think, you know, I think it'd be very hard for somebody to come in and manipulate me now because I'm so aware. I'm so aware, like I'm seeing everything,
Good.
I'm paying attention to everything.
Yeah. And do you work out or no? Or do you walk a lot or get fitness?
Well, in New York, it's easy to walk a lot. So I very often get my 10,000 steps without even trying because I just walk usually wherever I go. You know, I don't exercise as much as I would like to ideally. So it's just a balance. You know, I do work out, but not in a way, like I don't do it in a way where I'm getting up at 5 a.m. and really driving myself hard. I do it because I know it makes me feel better. You know, I've never not felt better after going for a run or going to the gym. So I know that it makes me feel better. And obviously it's the healthy thing to do. And so I do exercise, but not sort of fanatically or in any
Makes
hardcore
sense.
way.
Yeah, me too. Okay, and I have to ask to end off, any secrets for youthfulness and anti-aging? Because for your 50s, like you look incredible. Like the skin on your neck and all your skin and you're glowing and...
Thank you. Yeah, I think people ask me this and I really think...
And I'm not saying 50s is old because it's not. I think it's so young. I'm close to my 50s, so it's not...
It feels really strange.
But sometimes if I say an age and I associate it, like you look good for this age, people get a little bit upset. I'm not trying to upset anybody. I'm just saying, like, I want to look like this when I'm turning 53, right? You said? So I need to know. I'm asking selfishly for myself. Yeah.
I really think that the number one thing is probably eating a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables, because I think that you know, people exercise a lot and they're like, oh, you got to drink, you know, a gallon of water or whatever. Like drinking water is good, obviously, but I think there's something about the water that's in fruits and vegetables that is so much more hydrating to your body and your cells. And, you know, I don't use like fancy skin care and creams. I don't get Botox or anything, not because I wouldn't, but like at the moment I just can't pay for it.
Well, you don't even need
I can buy a
it.
huge jug of, you know, coconut oil and use that on my skin and as makeup remover and all of that. And so, you know, and castor oil for your, like, people sell these really expensive things for your eyebrows and your eyelashes, and it's like, well, just use castor oil. And so I try to I'm pretty simple in terms of skincare and those types of things.
Yeah.
And I think that the number one thing is like eat a lot of fresh fruits.
Me too. What you eat.
And you know, watery vegetables and cucumbers and leafy greens and getting all of the good nutrition in.
Yeah. And what does a typical day of eating look like for you? Because people love to hear what you eat in a day. Like if you want to share.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's different all the time. So I am very lucky right now. I don't know. I do live right by the restaurant space because I did move back here to reopen in that space. And like, who knows what's going to happen now. But either way, I'm still there at the moment. So I live right near the Union Square Green Market. So that makes it really easy to get really good, fresh food. And, you know, I don't eat a lot in the morning. I usually eat a really huge salad at some point in the middle of the day. And, you know, with a mix of stuff. Lately, I've been loving purslane. It's my favorite thing ever, purslane, because it's very seasonal. It's like a sidewalk weed, but it's so incredibly healthy.
Wow.
And the leaves make a really good salad. It has this funny texture, almost like, you know how okra is kind of slimy?
Mm-hmm.
Purslane, it sounds gross, slimy, but it has a little bit of that. It has like omega-3s. It's really, really healthy. I think
Wow.
purslane is like a superfood that nobody
Amazing.
talks about.
Yeah.
And then, you sort of chop up the leaves to make a salad, but, you end up with these stems. And the stems, they have this lemony flavor. And I saved all the stems, and then I made a shake out of them with, added fruit and coconut water, and unbelievably delicious.
Amazing.
Purslane stems. So, yeah, and kind of like usually late morning, I do stuff with chia seeds. I don't even like buy almond milk anymore. I just take hemp seeds and make like hemp milk in the little NutriBullet thing, and put that in the fridge. And I'm on my own all the time, so I'm kind of very much a grazer. It's not like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But yeah, for the most part, when I'm that big kind of afternoon salad that's like my main big meal. And I put all kinds of stuff in there, like pumpkin seeds and hemp seeds, and, I'll chop up dates. I did write on my, I had a Patreon, but I sort of shifted over to Substack, but I did write this whole post about how to make the perfect salad. And it's not a recipe. It's kind of like, you want this element, you want something creamy, so avocado, you want something crunchy, and this is, and you want something a little bit sweet, and you want all the different flavors so that they all meld together. So it's kind of like a blueprint for making a really good salad.
Maybe you should start YouTube. You could teach us a lot.
Yeah,
you could
I'm
do
just
food stuff.
Really, like, shy and uncomfortable on camera.
Yeah.
And so
I get it. Me too. I still am too.
I mean, even like posting on Instagram, I put stuff on Instagram, and then I'm like, I need to go hide under the covers.
I get it. I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's normal to feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing. Any words to end off if somebody's going through a hard time? Because you've been through it the last few years and you've made it. So I'm glad you're still here. Wow. And any words to if somebody's watching and they're going through it?
I have a couple of dear friends who I have a couple of dear friends who really have been incredibly supportive throughout this whole time. And one of them in particular, what she says to me all the time is just keep going. Keep going.
Good.
And that helps a lot, because it's like, yeah, I'll just keep going. I'll keep trying. I'm here for it.
Good. And it'll get better, It'll get better for sure. It always does. Sometimes I feel like the darkest of the dark, then it's going to give us the highest of the highs, because we live on the planet of polarity. The dark times don't last forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finding, looking for the lessons and the wisdom in it, because there's always something to learn from whatever we perceive as being negative and challenging and scary. There's always something to learn from it.
Yeah. And what's your favorite book and favorite book from the last few years? Because you've read a lot, right? So if you had to pick one book, what's your favorite? And other than these are amazing, guys. I'll put these down below. Go grab them. And your favorite quote.
Oh, my favorite quote. Well, one of my favorite novels is a novel called Beautiful Ruins. When people ask me, that's usually the book that I say. Although a lot of my favorite books can be seen, my dog Leon passed away last year, but I used to post pictures of him reading books, and then I would hashtag Leon Reads Books. So if you go on Instagram and you put in hashtag Leon Reads Books, a bunch of pictures will pop up with a lot of my favorite books from the past.
Oh, nice. That's amazing.
I do still love to read. I really wish that people would, it's sad that a lot of people don't read as much as they used to.
Yeah.
God, a favorite quote. I might be drawing a blank.
No, it's hard when I put people on the spot with that. Everyone, you're not the... And Leon, how old was Leon? How old did he live till?
He was 14 and a half.
Oh, wow, that's pretty good, right? Because he was a pit bull, right? Is that a pretty long lifespan? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And he went... I'm so grateful that he went naturally. He was getting really... It was so heartbreaking, and I have so much... my heart breaks for people who are going through it with older dogs, because you get to a point where they're going to go. And so you're just living with this fear and anticipation of heartbreak, which is almost worse than the heartbreak itself. And so, it was getting to the point where I was thinking, oh God, is it going to get, am I going to need to get a wagon for him, like that? So he ended up going naturally, and I was with him through the whole process. And I wrote a whole essay about that online, which is sort of a heartbreaking but people have told me that it's really comforting.
Did you get another dog or no?
No, I mean, I'm not ready for that. I feel like there's so much for me to sort out in my life and figure out what I'm doing and where I'm gonna, like, am I gonna stay here or am I gonna reopen? Am I not? I don't know.
Yeah.
Everything's kind of completely
up in the air
at the moment. And so at some point, of course, I want to get, I'd love to have a ton of dogs.
Yeah. They're amazing. And is there a new man? If you want to answer, if not, I'll just cut it.
No, I will happily answer that. No, I like that. I've been closed for business
yeah,
for quite a while.
Yeah, just
so
stay out of there
when I was
for a
in
while.
Boston, I had a boyfriend and he's great and we're still in touch. We were texting last night and he moved to Alaska and I moved back to New York. So I knew that was going to happen. So he's very far away, but no, I've been in this period where I need to be on my own. I need to focus on whatever is going to come next for me. I have absolutely zero interest in
Dating right now.
Dating, and it wouldn't even be fair to the other person because I really need to focus on whatever I'm going to do next and how I'm going to sort out my life.
That's smart.
You know, I don't know, down the road if something happens, I don't know, but I'm not.
I'm sure at some point. You're only 53. Like you could live to 108. I'm sure there'll be another lover at some point, but it's smart at this point to just.
I really don't care.
Yeah, that's good.
Don't know. Maybe it's like menopause. I don't. And also I just have zero capacity for like somebody else's drama.
And there's nothing wrong with being single. A lot of the happiest women I know are single. Like, you know, before my mom passed away, she was really happy single. She always said, I'll never get married again. Like a lot of people just find contentment in it, live their best life.
Have your own space. And get up and do, you know, be on your own schedule and not deal with anybody else's stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for being so open. Thanks for being so authentic and sharing, because I know it's not easy to sit down and talk about like the dark parts of our lives on camera in front of people. So we appreciate you.
It felt kind of especially important given your audience, because I've heard from a lot of people in this space who've been taken advantage of, and I think there is a correlation between sort of high empathy, idealism, wanting to make the world a better place, you know, being in the space of plant-based food and wanting people to eat healthy, and being in this sort of very genuine, authentic way, you know, vulnerable. Because again, you just want the best and you want to assume the best of people. And so we sort of don't see it coming. So anyway, I've noticed a correlation. So I feel like
interesting.
People, you know, understanding my story and what happened to me could be really useful. And especially younger people. Like if anything, I would love a lot of younger people to read my book and understand what could happen, and younger women. You know, because a lot of the stuff that ended up happening probably was certainly exacerbated by the fact that you know, I probably had a lot of issues with low self-esteem and whatnot, and that's so common.
Yeah. Do you go to therapy or no? Has therapy helped?
I don't go to therapy because it's like expensive.
It is. I have a really good therapist. I tried a few in the past and none of them were good. And then you find the right one. I go to Dr. Doug Lyle. Some of my viewers know him. He's amazing. He's just more than a therapist. He's like a life coach, and he's. Yeah. I mean, I can give you his info in case you ever want to use him.
I've seen some people here and there, and I've been exposed to some really amazing people, but no, I've sort of, for better or worse, been my own therapist and taking myself through the process. I mean, I've taken myself through like 𝑖𝑹𝑠, which is like this internal family systems framework that talks about all the different parts of yourself. And so I'm all of the content that I absorb nowadays is, you know, a lot of podcasts where people are talking about this stuff. And so I'm just absorbing information. I'm reading various books, putting myself through, you know, tons of journaling and self-reflection and having revelations and writing about it. And I share a lot about it. You know, I'm sharing more and more about it on my Substack. Again, I'm continuing to be very open because even if it, you know, I think it's okay to be vulnerable, that I'm aware of it, but I'm not going to sort of close off.
Yeah, that's good.
Because somebody out there might, you know, use it against me in some way. I continue to be really open about my process because I think it's helpful for other people. Okay, amazing. Well, thank you again. Thank you. Where can everybody get these amazing books? I'll put it down below. And where can they follow you? I'm most active on Instagram, which is just my full name, Sarma 𝒔𝒂𝒗𝒆 on Instagram. I'm weirdly like, can't access my Facebook account. I don't go on Facebook. I can't even get into it right now. Really? But, like, stuff posts so people think I'm there. But anyway, I got to figure that out. Yeah. But there's a website for the book, The Girl with the Duck Tattoo. So if people wanted to get like a signed copy from me, oh, cool, they can do that. Yeah. It's on Amazon. I did publish it independently because I didn't want somebody else to control the narrative. So it's not at most bookstores unless you ask for it, but it is on Amazon, or you can bypass Amazon and get it directly from the printer.
Okay, yeah, because I went to Barnes & Noble and they were like, it's not here, but we can order it in.
Yeah, they did have some, but...
Okay, yeah, I thought so.
But yeah, so it's just the title of the book, The Girl with the Duck Tattoo, and then there's various options. Or if you go to my Instagram, the bio links has all the stuff. And then I'm writing, I transitioned from Patreon to mostly, they're both still there, but I'm writing more and more on Substack.
Cool.
So that's a place where I like to connect with people.
Okay, cool, awesome. Well, thank you again.
Yeah,
it's been fun. It's been amazing. Yeah, I want to have you on for a while, so thanks.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad this worked out.
Yeah, it's been great.
Here in the city.
Yeah, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got some inspiration to eat more raw food, live your best life, get away from those toxic relationships, go work out, get away from the alcohol, all the good stuff. And I'll put another really good podcast on the screen right now. Maybe I'll pop up Chef Babette. She's so inspiring too. She's actually 74 years young, the fittest person I know, and a green juice recipe. So go watch one of those, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.